The sky was clear, the water transparent. Looking over the side, Iori could see schools of countless tiny fish racing about. Among the rocks, he also spotted the rusty remains of an old helmet. He had no ears for the conversation going on around him. What do you think? Is it going to stay peaceful the way it is now? I doubt it. You are probably right. Sooner or later, there will be fighting. I hope not, but what else can you expect? Other passengers kept their thoughts to themselves and stared dourly at the water, afraid an official, probably in disguise, might overhear and connect them with the speakers. Those who did take the risk seemed to enjoy flirting with the ubiquitous eyes and ears of the law. You can tell from the way they are checking everybody that we are heading for war. It's only very recently that they have been clamping down like that, and there are a lot of rumors about spies from Osaka. You also hear about burglars breaking into daimyo's houses, though they try to hush it up. It must be embarrassing being robbed when you are supposed to be the enforcers of law and order. You have to be after more than many to take that kind of risk. It has got to be spies. No ordinary crook will have the nerve. As he looked around, it occurred to Musashi that the ferry was transporting a fair cross-section of Edo society. A lumberman with sawdust clinging to his work clothes, a couple of cheap geishas who might have come from Kyoto, a broad-shouldered roughneck or two, a group of well-diggers, two openly coquettish whores, a priest, a beggar monk, and another ronin like himself. When the boat reached the Edo side and they all piled out, a short, heavy-set man called to Musashi. Hey you, the ronin, you forgot something. He held out a reddish brocade pouch, so old that the dirt seemed to shine more brightly than the few gold threads left in it. Musashi, shaking his head, said, It's not mine. It must belong to one of the other passengers. Iori piped up. It's mine, snatched the pouch from the man's hand and stuffed it into his kimono. The man was indignant. What are you doing, grabbing like that? Give it here, then you are going to bow 3 times before you get it back. If you don't, you are going to get thrown in the river. Musashi intervened, asking the man to excuse Iori's rudeness because of his age. What are you? The man asked roughly. Brother, master, what's your name? Miyamoto Musashi, exclaimed the ruffian, staring hard at Musashi's face. After a moment, he said to Iori, you better be more careful from now on. Then, as though eager to escape, he turned away. Just a moment, said Musashi. The gentleness of his tone took the man completely by surprise. He whirled around, his hand going to his sword. What do you want? What's your name? What is it you ask? You ask mine. As a matter of courtesy, you should tell me yours. I'm one of Hangawara's men. My name's Juro. All right, you can go, said Musashi, pushing him away. I won't forget that. Juro stumbled a few steps before he found his feet and fled. Serves him right, the coward, said Iori. Satisfied that he had been vindicated, he looked up worshipfully at Musashi's face and moved closer to him. As they walked into the city, Musashi said, Iori, you have to realize that living here is not like being out in the country. There we had only foxes and squirrels for neighbors. Here there are lots of people. We will have to be more careful about your manners. Yes, sir. When people live together in harmony, the earth is a paradise, Musashi went on gravely. But every man has a bad side as well as a good side. There are times when only the bad comes out, then the world's not paradise, but hell. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, I think so, said Iori, more subdued now. There's a reason we have manners and etiquette. They keep us from letting the bad side take over. This promotes social order, which is the objective of the government's laws. Musashi paused. The way you acted, it was a trivial matter, but your attitude couldn't help but make the man angry. I'm not at all happy about it, yes, sir. I don't know where we will be going from here, but wherever we are, you better follow the rules and act courteously. The boy bobbed his head a couple of times and made a small, stiff bow. They walked on in silence for a short while. Sir, would you carry my pouch for me? I don't want to lose it again. Accepting the small brocade bag, Musashi inspected it closely before tucking it into his kimono. Is this the one your father left you? Yes, sir. I got it back from the Tokugenji at the beginning of the year. The priest didn't take any of the money. You can use some of it if you need to. Thanks, Musashi said lightly. I will take good care of it. He has a talent I don't have, mused Musashi, thinking ruefully of his own indifference to personal finances. The boy's innate prudence had taught Musashi the meaning of economics. He appreciated the boy's trust and was growing fonder of him by the day. He looked forward with enthusiasm to the task of helping him develop his native intelligence. Where would you like to stay tonight? He asked. Iori, who had been looking at his new surroundings with great curiosity, remarked, I see lots of horses over there. It looks like a marketplace right here in town. He spoke as though he had run across a long-lost friend in a strange country. They had reached Bakurocho, where there was a large and diverse selection of tea shops and hostelries catering to the equine professions, sellers, buyers, draymen, grooms, a variety of lesser factotums. Men in small groups haggled and babbled in a welter of dialects, the most prominent being the tangy, irate-sounding speech of Edo. Among the rabble was a well-groomed samurai searching for good horses. With a disgruntled look, he said, Let's go home. There's nothing here but nags, nothing worth recommending to his lordship. Striding briskly between the animals, he came face to face with Musashi, blinked and stepped back in surprise. You are Miyamoto Musashi, aren't you? Musashi looked at the man for an instant, then broke into a grin. It was Kimura Sugekuro. Although the two men had come within inches of locking swords at Koyaku Castle, Sugekuro's manner was cordial. He seemed to bear no lingering rancor from that encounter. I certainly didn't expect to see you here, he said. Have you been in Edo long? I have just come from Shimosa, replied Musashi. How is your master? Is he still in good health? Yes, thank you, but of course at Seikishu-sai's age, I'm staying with Lord Munenori. You must come to visit. I'll be glad to introduce you. Oh, there's something else, too. He flashed a meaningful look and smiled. We have a beautiful treasure that belongs to you. You must come as soon as you can. Before Musashi could inquire what the beautiful treasure might be, Sekikuro made a slight bow and walked rapidly away, his attendant trailing along behind. The guests staying at the inexpensive inns of Bakurocho were mostly horse traders in from the provinces. Musashi decided to take a room there rather than in another part of town, where the rates would most likely be higher. Like the other inns, the one he chose had a large stable, so large in fact that the rooms themselves seemed rather like an annex. But after the rigors of Hotengahara, even this third-rate hostelry seemed luxurious. Despite his feeling of well-being, Musashi found the horseflies annoying and began grumbling. The proprietress heard him. "I will change your room," she offered solicitously. "The flies aren't so bad on the second floor." Once resettled, Musashi found himself exposed to the full strength of the western sun and felt like grumbling again. Only a few days ago, the afternoon sun would have been a source of cheer, a bright ray of hope, shedding nourishing warmth on the rice plants and portending good weather for the morrow. As for the flies, when his sweat had attracted them while he walked in the fields, he had taken the view that they were only going about their chores, just as he was going about his. He had even regarded them as fellow creatures. Now, having crossed one wide river and entered the maze of the city, he found the heat of the sun anything but comforting, the flies only an irritation. His appetite took his mind off the inconveniences. He glanced at Iori and saw symptoms of lassitude and gluttony in his face too. Small wonder, for a party in the next room had ordered a great pot of steaming food and was now attacking it ravenously amid much talk, laughter, and drinking. Buckwheat noodles sober, that's what he wanted. In the country, if a man wanted sober, he planted buckwheat in the early spring, watched it flower in the summer, dried the grain in the fall, ground the flour in the winter. Then he could make sober. Here it required no more effort than clapping one's hands for service. "Iori, shall we order some sober?" "Yes," came the eager reply. The proprietress came and took their order. While they waited, Musashi propped his elbows on the window-sill and shaded his eyes. Diagonally across the way was a signboard reading, "Souls polished here. Tsushino Kosuke, master in the Hon Army style." Iori had noticed it too. After staring for a moment in bewilderment, he said, "That sign says souls polished. What sort of business is that?" "Well, it also says the man walks in the Hon Army style, so I suppose he's a sword polisher. Come to think of it, I ought to have my sword walk on." The sober was so slow to arrive. So Musashi stretched out on the tatami for a nap, but the voices in the next room had risen several decibels and become quarrelsome. "Iori," he said, opening one eye, "will you ask the people next door to be a little quieter?" Only Shoji separated the two rooms, but instead of opening them, Iori went out into the hall. The door to the other room was open. "Don't make so much noise," he shouted. "My teacher's trying to sleep." Hank, the squabble came to an abrupt halt. The men turned and stared angrily at him. "You say something, shrimp?" Pouting at the epithet, Iori said, "We came upstairs because of the flies. Now you are yelling so much he can't rest. Is this your idea, or did your master send you?" "He sent me." "Did he? Well, I'm not wasting my time talking to a little turd like you. Go tell your master. Kumagoro of Chichibu will give him his answer later. Now beat it." Kumagoro was a great brute of a man, and the 2 or 3 others in the room were not much smaller. Cowed by the menace in their eyes, Iori quickly retreated. Musashi had dropped off to sleep. Not wanting to disturb him, Iori sat down by the window. Presently, one of the horse traders opened the shoji a crack and peeked in at Musashi. There followed much laughter, accompanied by loud and insulting remarks. Who does he think he is, batting into our party? Dump rolling, no telling where he comes from. Just barges in and starts acting like he owns the place. We will have to show him what's what. Yeah, we will make sure he knows what the horse traders of Edo are made of. Talking's not going to show him. Let's haul him out back and throw a bucket of horse piss in his face. Kumagoro spoke up. Hold on now, let me handle this. Either I will get an apology in writing or we will wash his face with horse piss. Enjoy your sake, leave everything to me. This should be good, said one man as Kumagoro, with a confident smirk, tightened his obi. I beg your pardon, said Kumagoro, sliding the shoji open. Without standing up, he shuffled into Musashi's room on his knees. The sober 6 helpings in a lacquer box had finally arrived. Musashi was sitting up now, addressing his chopsticks to his first helping. Look, they are coming in, said Iori under his breath, moving slightly to get out of the way. Kumagoro seated himself behind and to Iori's left, legs crossed, elbows resting on his knees. With a fierce scowl, he said, You can eat later. Don't try to hide the fact that you are scared by sitting there playing with your food. Though he was grinning, Musashi gave no indication that he was listening. He stirred the sober with his chopsticks to separate the strands, lifted a mouthful and swallowed with a joyous slurp. The veins in Kumagoro's forehead nearly popped. Put that bowl down, he said angrily. And who are you? Musashi asked mildly, making no move to comply. You don't know who I am? The only people in Bakurocho who haven't heard my name are good-for-nothings and deaf mutes. I'm a little hard of hearing myself. Speak up. Tell me who you are and where you come from. I am Kumagoro from Chichibu, the best horse trader in Edo. When children see me coming, they get so scared they can't even cry. I see. Then you are in the horse business. You bet I am. I sell to the samurai. You better remember that when you are dealing with me. In what way am I dealing with you? You sent that rent there to complain about the noise. Where do you think you are? This is no fancy inn for daimyo, nice and quiet and all. We horse traders like noise. I gather that. Then why were you trying to bust up our party? I demand an apology. Apology? Yes, in writing. You can address it to Kumagoro and his friends. If we don't get one, we will make you wait. We will take you outside and teach you a thing or two. What you say is interesting, Hank. I mean, your way of speaking is interesting. Cut out the nonsense. Do we get the apology or don't we? Well, Kumagoro's voice had gone from a growl to a roar, and the sweat on his crimson forehead glistened in the evening sun. Looking ready to explode, he bared his hairy chest and took a dagger from his stomach wrapper. Make up your mind. If I don't hear your answer soon, you are in big trouble. He uncrossed his legs and held the dagger vertically beside the lacquer box, its point touching the floor. Musashi, restraining his mirth, said, Well, now how should I respond to that? Lowering his bowl, he reached out with his chopsticks, removed a dark speck from the sober in the box and threw it out the window. Still silent, he reached out again and picked off another dark speck, then another. Kumagoro's eyes bugged, his breath halted. There's no end to them, is there? Remarked Musashi casually. Here, Iori, go give these chopsticks a good washing. As Iori went out, Kumagoro faded silently back into his own room and in a hushed voice told his companions of the incredible sight he had just witnessed. After first mistaking the black spots on the sober for dirt, he had realized they were live flies plucked so deftly they had had no time to escape. Within minutes, he and his fellows transferred their little party to a more remote quarter, and like silence reigned. That's better, isn't it? Said Musashi to Iori. The two of them grinned at one another. By the time they had finished their meal, the sun was down and the moon was shining wanly above the roof of the soul polisher's shop. Musashi stood up and straightened his kimono. I think I will see about having my sword taken care of, he said. He picked up the weapon and was about to leave when the proprietress came halfway up the blackened staircase and called, a letter's come for you. Puzzled that anyone should know his whereabouts so soon, Musashi went down, accepted the missive, and asked, Is the messenger still here? No, he left immediately. The outside of the letter bore only the word Suki, which Musashi took to stand for Kimura Sugekuro. Unfolding it, he read, I informed Lord Munenori that I saw you this morning. He seemed happy to receive word of you after all this time. He instructed me to write and ask when you will be able to visit us. Musashi descended the remaining steps and went to the office, where he borrowed ink and brush. Seating himself in a corner, he wrote on the back of Sugekuro's letter, I shall be happy to visit Lord Munenori whenever he wishes to have a bout with me. As a warrior, I have no other purpose in calling in on him. He signed the note Masana, a formal name he seldom used. Iori, he called from the bottom of the stairs. I want you to run an errand for me. Yes, sir. I want you to deliver a letter to Lord Yagu Munenori. Yes, sir. According to the proprietress, everybody knew where Lord Munenori lived, but she offered directions anyway. Go down the main street until you come to the high road. Go straight along that as far as Nihonbashi, then bear to the left and go along the river until you get to Kobikicho. That's where it is. You can't miss it. Thanks, said Iori, who already had his sandals on. I'm sure I can find it. He was delighted at the opportunity to go out, particularly since his destination was the home of an important daimyo. Giving no thought to the hour, he walked away quickly, swinging his arms and holding his head up proudly. As Musashi watched him turn the corner, he thought, he's a little too self-confident for his own good. The soul polisher. Good evening, called Musashi. Nothing about Tsushino Kosuge's house suggested it was a place of business. It lacked the grill front of most shops, and there was no merchandise on display. Musashi stood in the dirt floor passageway running down the left side of the house. To his right was a raised section, floored with tatami and screened off from the room beyond it. The man sleeping on the tatami with his arms resting on a strong box resembled a Taoist sage Musashi had once seen in a painting. The long, thin face was the grayish color of clay. Musashi could detect in it none of the keenness he associated with swords craftsmen. Good evening, Musashi repeated a little louder. When his voice penetrated Kosuge's torpor, the craftsman raised his head very slowly. He might have been awakened from centuries of slumber. Wiping the saliva from his chin and sitting up straight, he asked lackadaisically, "Can I help you?" Musashi's impression was that a man like this might make swords as well as souls duller, but he nevertheless held out his own weapon and explained why he was there. "Let me take a look at it." Kosuke's shoulders perked up smartly. Placing his left hand on his knee, he reached out with his right to take the sword, simultaneously bowing his head toward it. Strange creature, thought Musashi. He barely acknowledges the presence of a human being, but bows politely to a sword. Holding a piece of paper in his mouth, Kosuke quietly slid the blade out of the scabbard. He stood it vertically in front of him and examined it from hilt to tip. His eyes took on a bright glitter, reminding Musashi of glass eyes in a wooden Buddhist statue. Snapping the weapon back into its scabbard, Kosuke looked up inquiringly at Musashi. "Come, have a seat," he said, moving back to make room and offering Musashi a cushion. Musashi removed his sandals and stepped up into the room. "Has that sword been in your family for some generations?" "Oh no," said Musashi. "It's not the work of a famous swordsmith, nothing like that." "Have you used it in battle, or do you carry it for the usual purposes?" "I haven't used it on the battlefield. There is nothing special about it. The best you could say is that it's better than nothing." Looking directly into Musashi's eyes, Kosuke then asked, "How do you want it polished?" "How do I want it polished? What do you mean?" "Do you want it sharpened so it will cut well?" "Well, it is a sword. The cleaner it cuts, the better." "I suppose so," agreed Kosuke with a defeated sigh. "What's wrong with that? Isn't it the business of a craftsman to sharpen swords so they will cut properly?" As Musashi spoke, he squinted curiously into Kosuke's face. The self-proclaimed polishers or souls shoved the weapon toward Musashi and said, "I can't do anything for you. Take it to somebody else." Strange indeed, thought Musashi. He could not disguise a certain vexation, but he said nothing. Kosuke, his lips tightly set, made no attempt to explain. While they sat silently staring at each other, a man from the neighborhood stuck his head in the door. "Kosuke, have you got a fishing pole? It's high tide and the fish are jumping. If you will lend me a pole, I will divide my catch with you." Kosuke plainly regarded the man as one more burden he ought not to have to bear. "Borrow one somewhere else," he rasped. "I don't believe in killing, and I don't keep instruments for murder in my house." The man went quickly away, leaving Kosuke looking grumpier than ever. Another man might have become discouraged and left, but Musashi's curiosity held him there. There was something appealing about this man, not wit nor intelligence, but a rough, natural goodness like that of a karatsu sake jar or a tea bowl by Nonko. Just as pottery often has a blemish evocative of its closeness to the earth, Kosuke had in a seeming bald spot on his temple a lesion of some sort, which he had covered with salve. While attempting to conceal his growing fascination, Musashi said, "What is there to keep you from polishing my sword? Is it of such poor quality you can't put a good edge on it?" "Of course not. You are the owner. You know as well as I do it's a perfectly good Bizen sword. I also know you want it sharpened for the purpose of cutting people. Is there anything wrong with it?" "That's what they all say. What's wrong with wanting me to fix a sword so it will cut better? If the sword cuts, they are happy. But a man bringing in a sword to be polished naturally wants—" "Just a minute." Kosuke raised his hand. "It will take some time to explain. First, I would like you to take another look at the sign on the front of my shop. It says souls polished, or at least I think so. Is there any other way of reading the characters? No, you will notice it doesn't say a word about polishing swords. My business is polishing the souls of the samurai who come in, not their weapons. People don't understand, but that's what I was taught when I studied sword polishing. I see, said Musashi, although he didn't really. Since I tried to abide by my master's teachings, I refuse to polish the swords of samurai who take pleasure in killing people. Well, you have a point there, but tell me, who was this master of yours? That's written on the sign too. I study in the house of Honami, under Honami Koatsu himself. Kosuke squared his shoulders proudly as he uttered his master's name. That's interesting. I happen to have made the acquaintance of your master and his excellent mother, Myoshu. Musashi went on to tell how he had met them in the field under the Randaiji and later spent a few days at their house. Kosuke, astonished, scrutinized him closely for a moment. Are you by any chance the man who caused a great stir in Kyoto some years ago by defeating the Yoshioka school at Ichijoji? Miyamoto Musashi was the name, I believe. That is my name. Musashi's face reddened slightly. Kosuke moved back a bit and bowed deferentially, saying, "Forgive me, I shouldn't have been lecturing you. I had no idea I was talking to the famous Miyamoto Musashi. Don't give it a second thought. Your words are very instructive. Koetsu character comes through in the lessons he teaches his disciples. As I'm sure you know, the Honami family served the Ashikaga shoguns. From time to time, they have also been called upon to polish the emperor's swords. Koetsu was always saying that Japanese swords were created not to kill or injure people, but to maintain the imperial rule and protect the nation, to subdue devils and drive out evil. The sword is the samurai's soul. He carries it for no other purpose than to maintain his own integrity. It is an ever present admonition to the man who rules over other men and seeks in doing so to follow the way of life. It's only natural that the craftsman who polishes the sword must also polish the swordsman's spirit. How true, agreed Musashi. Koetsu said that to see a good sword is to see the sacred light, the spirit of the nation's peace and tranquility. He hated touching a bad sword, even being near one used to nauseate him. I see. Are you saying you sense something evil in my sword? No, not in the least. I just felt a little depressed. Since coming to Edo, I have worked on any number of weapons, but none of their owners seem to have an inkling of the sword's true meaning. I sometimes doubt they have souls to polish. All they care about is quartering a man or splitting his head open, helmet and all. It got so tiresome. That's why I put up a new sign a few days ago. It doesn't seem to have had much effect, though, and I came in asking for the same thing, didn't I? I understand how you feel. Well, that's a beginning. Things may turn out a little differently with you, but frankly, when I saw that blade of yours, I was shocked. All those nicks and stains made by human flesh. I thought you were just one more senseless Ronin, proud of himself for committing a number of meaningless murders. Musashi bowed his head. It was the voice of Koetsu, coming from Kosuke's mouth. I'm grateful for this lesson, he said. I have carried a sword since I was a boy, but I have never really given sufficient thought to the spirit that resides in it. In the future, I will pay heed to what you have said. Kosuke appeared vastly relieved. In that case, I will polish the sword for you. Or perhaps I should say I consider it a privilege for one in my profession to be able to polish the soul of a samurai like yourself. Twilight had faded, and the lights had been lit. Musashi decided it was time to go. Wait, said Kosuke. Do you have another sword to carry while I'm working on this one? No, I have only the one long sword. In that case, why don't you pick out a replacement? None of the swords I have here now are very good, I'm afraid, but come and take a look. He guided Musashi into the back room, where he took several swords out of a cabinet and lined them up on the tatami. You can take any one of these, he offered. Despite the craftsman's modest disavowal, they were all weapons of excellent quality. Musashi had difficulty choosing from the dazzling display, but finally he selected one and immediately fell in love with it. Just holding it in his hands, he sensed its maker's dedication. Drawing the blade from the scabbard confirmed his impression. It was indeed a beautiful piece of workmanship, probably dating from the Yoshino period in the 14th century. Nagged by the doubt that it was too elegant for him, once he had brought it close to the light and examined it, he found his hands reluctant to let it go. May I take this one? He asked. He could not bring himself to use the word borrow. You have the eye of an expert, observed Kosuke, as he put away the other swords. For once in his life, Musashi was swamped by covetousness. He knew it was futile to mention buying the sword outright. The price would be far beyond his means, but he couldn't help himself. I don't suppose you would consider selling me this sword, would you? He asked. Why not? How much are you asking for it? I will let you have it for what I paid for it. How much was that? 20 pieces of gold. An almost inconceivable sum to Musashi. I better give it back, he said hesitantly. Why? Asked Kosuke with a puzzled look. I will lend it to you for as long as you wish. Go on, take it. No, that would make me feel even worse. Wanting it the way I do is bad enough. If I wore it for a little, it would be torture to part with it. Are you really so attached to it? Kosuke looked at the sword, then at Musashi. All right then, I will give it to you. In wedlock, as it were, but I expect an appropriate gift in exchange. Musashi was baffled. He had absolutely nothing to offer. I heard from Koatsu that you curve statues. I would be honored if you would make me an image of Canon. That would be sufficient payment. The last cannon Musashi had curved was the one he had left in Hotengahara. I have nothing on hand, he said, but in the next few days I can curve something for you. May I have the sword then? Certainly. I didn't mean to imply I expected it this minute. By the way, instead of putting up at that inn, why don't you come and stay with us? We have a room we are not using. That would be perfect, said Musashi. If I moved in tomorrow, I could start on the statue right away. Come and take a look at it, urged Kosuke, who was also happy and excited. Musashi followed him down the outside passageway, at the end of which was a flight of half a dozen steps. Tucked in between the first and second floors, not quite belonging to either, was an 8-mat room. Through the window, Musashi could see the dew-laden leaves of an apricot tree. Pointing at a roof covered with oyster shells, Kosuke said, That's my workshop there. The craftsman's wife, as if summoned by a secret signal, arrived with sake and some tidbits. When the two men sat down, the distinction between host and guest seemed to evaporate. They relaxed, legs stretched out, and opened their hearts to each other, oblivious of the restraints normally imposed by etiquette. The talk, of course, turned to their favorite subject. Everyone pays lip service to the importance of the sword, said Kosuke. Anybody will tell you the sword is the soul of the samurai and that a sword is one of the country's three sacred treasures. But the way people actually treat swords is scandalous, and I include samurai and priests as well as townsmen. I took it upon myself at one time to go around shrines and old houses where there were once whole collections of beautiful swords, and I can tell you the situation is shocking. Kosuke's pale cheeks were ready now. His eyes burned with enthusiasm, and the saliva that gathered at the corners of his mouth occasionally flew in a spray right into his companion's face. Almost none of the famous swords from the past are being properly taken care of. At Suwo Shrine in Shinano Province, there are more than 300 swords. They could be classed as heirlooms, but I found only 5 that weren't rusted. Omishima Shrine in Iyo is famous for its collection, 3,000 swords dating back many centuries, but, but after spending a whole month there, I found only 10 that were in good condition. It's disgusting. Kosuke caught his breath and continued. The problem seems to be that the older and more famous the sword is, the more the owner is inclined to make sure it is stored in a perfect place. It is stored in a safe place. But then nobody can get at it to take care of it, and the blade gets rustier and rustier. The owners are like parents who protect their child so jealously that the children grow up to be fools. In the case of children, more are being born all the time. Doesn't make any difference if a few are stupid, but swords. Pausing to suck in the spit, he raised his thin shoulders even higher and with a gleam in his eyes declared, "We already have all the good swords there will ever be. During the civil wars, the swordsmiths got careless, no, downright sloppy. They forgot their techniques and swords have been deteriorating ever since. The only thing to do is to take better care of the swords from the earlier periods. The craftsmen today may try to imitate the older swords, but they will never turn out anything as good. Doesn't it make you angry to think about it?" Abruptly he stood up and said, "Just look at this." Bringing out a sword of awesome length, he laid it down for his guest to inspect. It's a splendid weapon, but it's covered with the worst kind of rust. Musashi's heart skipped a beat. The sword was, without doubt, Sasaki Kojiro's drying pole. A flood of memories came rushing back. Controlling his emotions, he said calmly, "That's really a long one, isn't it? Must take quite a samurai to handle it." "I imagine so," agreed Kosuke. "There aren't many like it." Taking the blade out, he turned the back toward Musashi and handed it to him by the hilt. "See," he said, "it's rusted badly. Here and here and here. But he has used it anyway, I see. This is a rare piece of workmanship, probably forged in the Kamakura period. It will take a lot of work, but I can probably fix it up. On these ancient swords, the rest is only a relatively thin film. If this were a new blade, I would never be able to get the stains off. On new swords, rust spots are like malignant swords. They eat right into the heart of the metal." Reversing the sword's position so that the back of the blade was toward Kosuke, Musashi said, "Tell me, Did the owner of this sword bring it in himself? No, I was at Lord Hosokawa's on business, and one of the older retainers, Iwama Kakube, asked me to drop in at his house on the way back. I did, and he gave it to me to walk on. Said it belonged to a guest of his. The fittings are good too, remarked Musashi, his eyes still focused on the weapon. It's a battle sword. The man has been carrying it on his back up till now, but he wants to carry it at his side, so I have been asked to refit the scabbard. He must be a very large man, either that or he has a very practiced arm. Kosuke had begun to feel his sake. His tongue was becoming a little thick. Musashi concluded it was time to take his leave, which he did with a minimum of ceremony. It was much later than he thought. There were no lights in the neighborhood. Once inside the inn, he groped through the darkness to the stairway and up to the second floor. Two pallets had been spread, but both were empty. Iori's absence made him uncomfortable, for he suspected the boy was wandering about lost on the streets of this great and familiar city. Going back downstairs, he shook the night watchman awake. Isn't he back yet? Asked the man, who seemed more surprised than Musashi. I thought he was with you. Knowing he would only stare at the ceiling until Iori came back, Musashi went out into the black lacquer night again and stood with arms crossed under the eaves. The fox. Is this Kobikicho? In spite of repeated assurances that it was, Iori still had his doubts. The only lights visible on the broad expanse of land belonged to the makeshift huts of woodworkers and stone masons, and these were few and far between. Beyond them, in the distance, he could just make out the foaming white waves of the bay. Near the river were piles of rocks and stacks of lumber, and although Iori knew that buildings were going up at a furious pace all over Edo, it struck him as unlikely that Lord Yagyu would build his residence in an area like this. Where to nest, he thought dejectedly as he sat down on some lumber. His feet were tired and burning. To cool them, he wiggled his toes in the dewy grass. Soon his tension ebbed away and the sweat dried, but his spirits remained decidedly damp. It's all the fault of that old woman at the inn, he muttered to himself. She didn't know what she was talking about. The time he himself had spent gawking at the sights in the theater district at Sakaicho conveniently slipped his mind. The hour was late and there was no one around from whom he could ask directions. Yet the idea of spending the night in these unfamiliar surroundings made him uneasy. He had to complete his errand and return to the inn before daybreak, even if it meant waking up one of the workers. As he approached the nearest shack where a light showed, he saw a woman with a strip of matting tied over her head like a shawl. Good evening, auntie, he said innocently, mistaking him for the helper at a nearby sake shop. The woman glared and sniffed. You, is it? You threw a rock at me and ran away, didn't you, you little brat? Not me, protested Iori. I've never seen you before. The woman came hesitantly toward him, then burst out laughing. No, she said, you are not the one. What's a cute little boy like you doing wandering around here at this time of night? I was sent on an errand, but I can't find the house I'm looking for. Whose house is it? Lord Yagyu of Tajima's. Are you joking? She laughed. Lord Yagyu is a daimyo and a teacher to the shogun. Do you think he would open his gate to you? She laughed again. You know somebody in the seventh quarters, perhaps. I have brought a letter. Who to? A samurai named Kimura Sekikuro. Must be one of his retainers. But you are so funny, throwing Lord Yagyu's name around like you knew him. I just want to deliver this letter. If you know where the house is, tell me. It's on the other side of the moat. If you cross that bridge over there, you will be in front of Lord Kii's house. The next one is Lord Kyogoku, then Lord Kato, then Lord Matsudaira of Suo, holding up her fingers. She counted off the sturdy storehouses on the opposite banks. I'm sure the one after that is the one you went. If I cross the moat, will I stay be in Kobikicho? Of course. Of all the stupid, here now, that's no way to talk. You seem such a nice boy. I will come along and show you Lord Yagyu's place. Walking in front of him with the matin on her head, she looked to Iori rather like a ghost. They were in the middle of the bridge when a man coming toward them brushed against her sleeve and whistled. He reeked of sake. Before Iori knew what was going on, the woman turned and made for the drink. I know you, she warbled. Don't just pass me by like that. It isn't nice. She grabbed his sleeve and started toward a place from which they could go below the bridge. Let go, he said. Wouldn't you like to go with me? No money. Oh, I don't care, latching on to him like a leech. She looked back at Iori's startled face and said, Run along now, I have got business with this gentleman. Iori watched in bewilderment as the two of them tugged back and forth. After a few moments, the woman appeared to get the upper hand, and they disappeared below the bridge. Still puzzled, Iori went to the railing and looked over at the grassy riverbank. Glancing up, the woman shouted, Nitwit, and picked up a rock. Swallowing hard, Iori dodged the missile and made for Iori dodged the missile and made for the far end of the bridge. In all his years on the barren plain of Hoden-Gahara, he had never seen anything so frightening as the woman's angry white face in the dark. On the other side of the river, he found himself before a storehouse. Next to that was a fence, then another storehouse, then another fence, and so on down the street. This must be it, he said when he came to the fifth building. On the gleaming white plaster wall was a crest in the form of a two-tier woman's hat. This, Iori knew from the words of a popular song, was the Yagyu family crest. Who's there? Demanded a voice from inside the gate. Speaking as loudly as he dared, Iori announced, I'm the pupil of Miyamoto Musashi. I have brought a letter. The sentry said a few words to Iori, a few words Iori could not catch. In the gate was a small door, through which people could be let in and out without opening the great gate itself. After a few seconds, the door slowly opened, and the man asked suspiciously, What are you doing here at this hour? Iori thrust the letter at the god's face. Please deliver this for me. If there's an answer, I will take it back. Mused the man, taking the letter. This is for Kimura Sekikuro, is it? Yes, sir. He's not here. Where is he? He's at the house in Higakubo, huh? Everybody told me Lord Yagyu's house was in Kobikicho. People say that, but there are only storehouses here, rice, lumber, and a few other things. Lord Yagyu doesn't live here. That's right. How far is it to the other place, Higakubo? Pretty far. Just where is it? In the hills outside the city, in Azabu village. Never heard of it, Iori sighed disappointedly. but his sense of responsibility prevented him from giving up. Sir, would you draw me a map? Don't be silly. Even if you knew the way, it would take you all night to get there. I don't mind. Lot of foxes in Azabu. You don't want to be bewitched by a fox, do you? No. Do you know Sekikuro well? My teacher does. I will tell you what, since it is so late, why don't you catch some sleep over there in the granary and go in the morning? Where am I? Exclaimed Iori, rubbing his eyes. He jumped up and ran outside. The afternoon sun made him dizzy. Squinting his eyes against the glare, he went to the gatehouse where the guard was eating his lunch. So you are finally up. Yes, sir. Could you draw me that map now? You in a hurry, sleepyhead? Here, you better have something to eat first. There's enough for both of us. While the boy chewed and gulped, the guard sketched a rough map and explained how to get to Higakubo. They finished simultaneously, and Iori, fired up with the importance of his mission, set off at a run, never thinking that Musashi might be worried about his failure to return to the inn. He made good time through the busy thoroughfares until he reached the vicinity of Edo Castle, where the imposing houses of the leading daimyo stood on the land built up between the crisscross system of moats. As he looked around, his pace slowed. The waterways were jammed with cargo boats. The stone ramparts of the castle itself were half covered with log scaffolding, which from a distance resembled the bamboo trellises used for growing morning glories. He dawdled again in a broad, flat area called Hibiya, where the scraping of chisels and the thud of axes raised a dissonant hymn to the power of the new shogunate. Iori stopped. He was mesmerized by the spectacle of the construction work. The laborers hauling huge rocks, the carpenters with their planes and saws, and the dashing samurai, who stood proudly supervising it all. How he wanted to grow up and be like them. A lusty sound rose from the throats of the men hauling rocks. We will pluck the flowers in the fields of Musashi, the gentians, the bellflowers, wild blossoms splashed in confusing disarray. And that lovely girl, the flower unpluckable, moistened by the dew. It will only dampen your sleep like falling tears. He stood enchanted. Before he realized it, the water in the moat was taking on a reddish cast and the evening voices of crows reached his ears. Oh no, it's nearly sundown, he chastised himself. He sped away and for a time moved along at full speed, paying attention to nothing save the map the god had drawn for him. Before he knew it, he was climbing the path up Azabu Hill, which was so thickly overhung with trees it might as well have been midnight. Once he reached the top, however, he could see the sun was still in the sky, though low on the horizon. There were about no houses on the hill itself, Azabu village being a mere scattering of fields and farm dwellings in the valley below. Standing in a sea of grass and ancient trees, listening to the brooks of gargling down the hillside, Iori felt his fatigue give way to a strange refreshment. He was vaguely aware that the spot where he was standing was historic, although he didn't know why. In fact, it was the very place that had given birth to the great warrior clans of the past, both the Taira and the Minamoto. He heard the loud booming of a drum being beaten, the kind often used at Shinto festivals. Down the hill, visible in the forest were the sturdy cross logs atop the ridgepole of a religious sanctuary. Had Iori but known it was the great shrine of Igura he had studied about, the famous edifice sacred to the sun goddess of Ise. The shrine was a far cry from the enormous castle he had just seen, even from the stately gates of the daimyo. In its simplicity, it was almost indistinguishable from the farmhouses around it, and Iori thought it puzzling that people talk more reverently about the Tokugawa family than they did about the